Good afternoon. What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Palantalk. I'm Nick Perro, founder here at Banner and Backbone, joined by my good friend Shane Urick, independent analyst and founder of the Firebrand Project. Shane, it's been a couple weeks since we've been on. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm tired, but it's good to be back. I missed you. I missed everybody here at Palantalk. So I'm excited to be sitting down with you today, regardless of the subject matter. It's always good to be back with you, Nick, and to be getting your take and being able to have these kind of discussions. I always look forward to it. So it's good to be here. And how are you doing, man?
I'm good. It's good to be back. Took a quick vacation, did a couple days off, got my mind away from things,
Yep.
realized I need more vacation, but
Yep.
we'll get there. And overall, it was good though. It's been very busy couple weeks. Been working a lot on the Broadbanner app. So if anyone wants, there's a QR code in top left hand corner of the screen, where we have the Broadbanner webpage. Don't worry about trying to sign up right now. We are not actively taking new members yet. We're still in our final testing phase. We will be opening up our tiers and our paid tiers and our subscription basis for it. We have some really cool tools that are basically ready for to go live. We're just getting them tested, and so I've been really busy there. Been busy with the Disability Community for Democracy stuff, and the Say No to Crip Crow action. If you are on our email list, you would have just gotten an email here not too long ago, with sent from Broadbanner Media Collaborative, our email tool for our action campaigns. And so you would have gotten an update so that you can sign up to volunteer for in-person protests and tell your story to your representative and or your senators so that you can get involved and get them involved. So we're working on Naida, our friend Naida Green in the chat, founder at Disability Community for Democracy. It has organized a training series, and then we're putting together an in-person action campaign to start meeting your reps and senators and talking to them in person and telling your story so that they can hear and do action and make action and codify Olmstead.
Yeah, it's important.
But that's not what we're here to talk about today, unfortunately.
No.
There's so much other shit going on too. Like, Shane, I'm gonna hand it over to you here, brother. Is give us an update to get us in here. Give us that TLDR so that we can get into this discussion, because today we are going to talk about that never-ending war with Iran, which we all said was, which many of us said was never going to end.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, go ahead. Sorry, please. I don't want to cut you off.
It's where we thought. Shane, take it away, brother.
Yeah. Those of you who get your news from traditional sources at this point, if I'm being candid, it's so detached from reality. We've really reached this insane parody where now things are so just entirely, I don't know, the best way I can put it is it's so detached from reality, in just about every way. And those of you who are observant would note that we are now on another pause. This is not a ceasefire. This is the pausing of strikes for negotiations. But I mean, what's really happened since everything went to shit? July 8th, the Anchorage summit, all the NATO members get together and they're like, hey, we're going to reaffirm that we have a really strong commitment to each other, and we're definitely going to honor Article 5. And so Trump, in his good old fashion, gets on the world stage and then declares this is a good question here. Did Iran attack Ukraine? There is some developing information. I don't know if they responded. I know that Ukraine attacked a Iranian tanker in the Caspian Sea. Just really quick, my take on that's really fucking stupid. And Ukraine has made some really stupid decisions in the last couple weeks. But that's another issue altogether. It is interesting kind of seeing just how politics just makes all the decisions.
I was going to say this wasn't, I think a strike on an Iranian vessel like that is more of a diplomatic tool than a
Yes,
war tool,
100%.
because what it's trying to do is it is gearing up
Garner favor.
alliances. No, it's trying to well, yes, it's trying to garner favor with, say, NATO, and maybe even Trump, to keep NATO as one piece, because the other option is to set yourself in the framing for an actual world war. Like, that is what the other framing would be, is what alliances would be made in this or lost. And so Ukraine is possibly trying to send a diplomatic message, be it a mistake or not. I think they're sending at least a diplomatic
100%.
message to try and say, if it's coming out that if it is true that they struck an Iranian vessel, and
it's very developing, very much
that it would be like, I would just see this as a way of them trying to push for further NATO unification. Whether it works or not, we'll see.
Yeah,
and it's hard to tell when you have someone like Trump as a president.
Yeah,
and Hegseth as the war leaders. Like, there's nothing you can really tell from them.
Yeah, and Nick is saying a lot of good stuff here, and I agree with him. A lot of it is to try and garner that support from NATO. There's another element here that is going to be the common denominator. It has been the denominator I have been screaming from the rooftops about since October of last year. It all comes back to interceptors, folks. It's that big I word, and it matters a lot. And it's actually already come out that the reasoning for the pausing of strikes was due to interceptor inventory. And we're going to look at a map here a little bit later, and we can talk a little bit about the repercussions of what it means when you're losing inventory, munitions, and how that affects your ability to engage in a conflict. That's going to be a big part of this. But a couple other really big developments here, other than the 11-day strike campaign, the United States hitting 1,000 targets in 11 days. I mean, they hit 13,000, and Iran reconstituted just about to 70+% of everything. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I mean, this is one of those things where, and Nick especially, having been under fire and bombarded in your life, it is literally the snippets of little bits of footage that we do get out is like, this is hell. This is hell. This is crazy for these kids who are over there on these bases. This is quite literally like death raining from the sky. And it is one of those things where we are looking at a confluence right now. And how they proceed from this pause is going to tell us a lot about what's going to happen moving forward, largely because they're really at that point where they have to decide, are we going to die on this hill? Like, are we actually going to die on this hill? Are we going to pull a Custer, or, are we going to take a real L and kind of bow out? because those are really the options. Again, like there is always that possibility that Iran has some sort of internal rebellion. It is less than likely. I'm not going to weight that very high. I'm going to assume that the Iranian regime's experience in suppressing dissent for a long decades is going to be is going to be effective. So I wouldn't weight that very high. There's a lot of concern in my mind, particularly looking at the strike map we'll look at here in a minute, and you can really get a better
Let me pull
idea.
the strike map up, and
Yeah, we can pull
just
it
get
up
into
here in
it.
a minute.
Right.
And if you guys want to get a look at this, you can go ahead and scan that QR code in the top right-hand corner. It'll take you to the article. I did a personal analysis of all of the strikes that took place up to the 22nd. And this is kind of a good way for you to kind of see how things are going. This really is, and they are surging forces and medical personnel. Like when they report 4 dead and that number kind of creeps up, it is, I don't know how to say this other than it's fucked. It's fucked, folks. It's not good. And if you kind of zoom out, Nick, what you'll see is this actually covers pretty much the entirety of Hormuz. And what we didn't have is you do have some developments around Bab el-Mandeb as well. That's really important. So you've got those blue strikes. Those are going to be our American strikes. And then, of course, we have the red over there. That's going to be Iran. So American strikes are going to be clustered towards that front part, the actual strait itself, near Bandar Abbas. There's a reason for that. The reason for that is pretty simple. That is where you're going to have the majority of Iranian forces exerting control over maritime shipping. So you have a lot of these little islands, and you can see that cluster by Bandar Abbas right there. That is where they keep a lot of their fast boats. That is where they keep a lot of their missiles, anti-ship missiles, things like that. And it allows them to pretty much make the risk in terms of insurance at this point. It doesn't even make sense for a shipping company to insure a ship, which basically freezes maritime shipping. Iran has already basically demonstrated that it can, even under insane amounts of bombardment by overwhelming U.S. air superiority, continue to make crossing. And you even have an example here where there was a anti-ship cruise missile on a tanker, right? So they're demonstrating the ability to use those anti-ship cruise missiles, which again is a big problem, particularly because the majority of our forces are Navy out there. We do have at least that are enforcing that blockade. So that stops our Navy from approaching close enough to do that. And you actually see a claimed strike. And I do believe that this was verified, where another radar was struck. So there,
If I'm going too quickly on clicking buttons here, I'm playing around with the map too while we go. So if you want to stop at a spot like specific, like let me know, and I'll click on them so I give you the correct pop-up data too.
Yeah, totally. The Artesh or IRGC, they're kind of both. They both have drones. They both have access to these things. So it's not necessarily one or the other. It is all very fluid. But at the end of the day, they kind of all answer at this point to the IRGC. IRGC is very firmly in control of everything, at least for the time being. So when we look at all of this, that cluster around Bandar Abbas, there's a big focus, and that's even the stated focus from CENTCOM, that they are attacking the ability for them to enforce control over the Strait of Hormuz. Clearly, it's not working because Hormuz is still closed, and we just had a huge development with the Houthis closing the Strait of Bab al-Mandeb. And that is really one of those things that when we are looking at the, the major concerns here on July 20th, they did actually go ahead and close that, which means that now both ways out of the Middle East, the Strait of Hormuz and Bab al-Mandeb, are closed. So what does that really mean? It means that our energy prices are about to go ballistic. Do I think this has a big influence on why the pause took effect? Absolutely. This was kind of one of those cards that they held for a long time. And I think that now that they've played it, it's demonstrative that they feel confident that this is something that will hold. And then they can remove it at their discretion, right? And it is one of those things where, and Nick, please hop in and interrupt me at any time, but it seems to me that we've entered this phase of confident coercion, where it's less about necessarily whether or not they survive. It's about whether or not the United States could do anything, because bombing them doesn't work, because they're still hitting our stuff. And what we blow up above ground, we've been talking about this a long time, is not the important stuff. Like, that's not what they're using to hit us. They are shoot and scoot, right? So for those of you that aren't familiar with the term, it basically is a kind of, I would say, like a nomadic form of warfare, where you are moving, you shoot, and then you're moving again. The doctrine the United States is better suited to handle would be you're firing from a fixed position, and then once that target is basically reconfirmed, they target that launch, whatever it's a drone or a missile. They go ahead and they calculate where that came from, and they will go and strike that in return. But when you're shooting and scooting and you shoot and you drive back into a tunnel, they can't bomb. It doesn't really work. But they still killed 4 people. More than that, way more than that. But that's what they're saying, right? So it doesn't. And the interceptor thing too, like, that's a wider discussion. But traditionally, it's not 1 for 1. It's 2 for 1, right? 3 for 1. Because if you really want to intercept something, you need to make sure that you have some redundancy. It's crazy, man. I just feel like they say they intercepted something, and the next day we see a satellite footage of everything being blown to shit. And we actually just had Europe begin enforcing, at the request of the United States, a 24-hour delay on their satellite footage, which the last time they did this was in the second week of what I call phase 1, when they got blown up bad and they wanted to hide it. So the fact that they're putting pressure on external satellite companies, Europe, things like that, tells me, again, we are experiencing something they are very concerned about us seeing. And that's kind of where I kind of want to get your thoughts on everything, Nick, and maybe translate some of my blab for folks who are maybe hear it from a different perspective.
Yeah. So from my perspective, so people know, if you haven't seen me before or we haven't talked about it much, I'm a U.S. Army veteran, combat veteran, went to Afghanistan in 2016 for Operation Enduring Freedom. And my family has a rich history in the military. And looking at this, one of the things too is just, a lot of people know this phrase, is you can't win a war, at least in the military side, you can't win a war with airstrikes alone. Like, you can't just win wars with airstrikes. So if we want to resolve what we started, the only way to do it is commit to a true land war. That's the only way they actually win, because then you can actually hit moving targets, because the Navy does a great job at what it does.
Yeah.
The Army and the Marines, though, would be the ones who would clear out and destroy the facilities that actually need it on the ground. And that's the only way you win a real war. You need an entrance strategy, you need a war strategy, because you can enter into a war situation. Like, we took over Iraq in really short amount of time. Like, we pushed through the entire country and then we came back, but we didn't have an exit strategy. You need an entrance strategy and a in-war strategy and an exit strategy. And the in-war strategy is you have to have boots on the ground. And the only other option is they pull most of our support out of the region, which is a viable option and would have been, had we done a real drawdown in the region, we could have actually exported our troops out of the region safely, ensured that any regional partners that we had the capabilities that they needed, and we could have moved out of there. But we didn't do that. Instead, we bombed them and said, now we look at me, I am the captain now. Like, that's what we said. We took a hat and we said, look at me, I am the captain now.
I am the captain.
And then they took the ship back and they're like, no, we're still the captain. Like, fuck you. And so the tit for tats, the tit for tats are going to continue, because underneath all of this, we have to remember there is still a driving factor that is not specifically public political, but it is one of the most political things that is happening right now, is the U.S. far right Christian nationalist movement is a dominionist apocalyptic movement that requires the wars in the Middle Eastern, South Asian regions and Northeastern African and Southwestern Asian regions. It requires that area to be at war because they need the apocalyptic side to happen so they can complete their dominionist conquest of the U.S. Like, there is a very strong rationale behind why they're doing all of the things they're doing in this region. Is destabilization is on purpose.
100%.
The war is on purpose, elevating global energy prices, hurting global fertilizer trade prices, like rare goods prices, all of the prices of shipments that come out of that region. It is intended to create chaos and to sow discord, to prove that we need to resolve this problem through conflict and not diplomatic means. And it should have never come to conflict, but it is what it is because we live in a regime that doesn't care about rules. And so this war is not going to end. Just, I hate to say it. I won't sugarcoat that. I don't believe this war will end until they achieve the goal that they need, which is to claim dominion over the peoples of the earth, or at least America's. And to do that, they require this war. So I don't think we will ever see this region stable during a MAGA regime, whatever nonsense we're in. I don't think we'll ever see that region stable again. I think we're in for a long-term war unless we can end it in the fall, unless we elect the correct people in the fall. I think we'll be at war for a really long time. And it's going to be a defeat no matter what happens. Like, we have lost this conflict. It is, what do we negotiate out of? We're losing this conflict unless we win it as a war, unless we go in and do ground operations and hammer the fuck out of them. It costs us service member lives, civilian lives, Iranian lives, destroy the environment, destroy the region anyways, slow down shipping even more. Like, a land war would be disastrous in so many ways for the economy. And it would also be super prosperous for the nepotistic family that owns multiple drone companies, that also has a president for a dad who's willing to just hand them blank checks because
crazy.
They get all the money, but we don't get any of the things. But anyway, yes, it's all intentional what is going on. The destabilization is intentional. The pauses are intentional. The timing so that they can manipulate the markets to make the most out of this is intentional. But at some point, this is going to blow up into a much broader conflict in the area, because Kuwait being bombed and other areas being more openly targeted is going to lead to them striking without our approvals or request, and it's going to spread.
Yeah. I mean, I can think of, let's put it this way. I think the last time I checked, we had 11 THAAD radars, like total. Okay. Like 11 of these radars that pair with the THAAD THAAD. It's like high altitude it's the really fancy one, right? There's the Patriot and then there's the THAAD. We had like 11. I can think of at least, and I'm sure like I'm forgetting one, I can think of at least 3 that have been blown up. Okay. So when we look at it from that perspective, there's a certain stigma surrounding the United States that we have no floor, that we have all the things we need, that we cannot run out of anything, that there is, and like Nick says, the personnel, the people, the institutions in terms of war fighting have a lot of experience. Experience is great, but to win a conflict, you need the implements of war. You need weapons platforms. You need early detection. You need all these things. If we were fighting a different country than Iran that is specifically tailored to a war where you are basically through attrition draining the U.S. of resources slowly over time. And this is where I think we can kind of get into a little bit of analysis here. If we go over and look really quick at Kuwait, and then I just kind of want to
yeah, absolutely.
So if we go over to Kuwait, you'll see that there's those 4 clusters. It's like the most like dramatic on the map. You see basically this area in Kuwait, and then I believe it is Bahrain, or is that all Kuwait? That's all Kuwait, right? So Kuwait's getting like blown up, right? Well, there's a couple important things about Kuwait. We can see proximity wise, Kuwait is the closest location through which you could reasonably stage U.S. ground forces and get them overland into Iran. It's probably the best place to do that. There's a lot of helicopter bases there. That's where they can deploy special forces, things like that. There was a couple strikes back, I want to say maybe 2 months ago, where it was notable. They hit like a helicopter staging area where they could have forward deployed troops and things like that. So this to me reads this cluster to me. And I always think of it this way. Iran's intelligence knows more than we do. So we want to look at what Iran is blowing up. What is Iran attacking? Because that's going to tell us what the United States is doing. Because make no mistake, they have phenomenal intelligence. They've been going toe to toe with Israel for decades. Israel has Mossad. This is not like some, argument. They're not some third world country without, effective institutions. They are very capable. Not to mention they have access to China and Russia, which also have a lot of information intelligence as well. So this clustering in Kuwait tells us that there is some concern, at least, that Kuwait is going to be used as a staging ground. They want to put pressure on Kuwait. They hit a desalination plant there, which is significant. That's a domestic pressure point. They're telling Kuwait that you should watch out what you're doing. This strategy of coercion by hitting economic or crucial civilian infrastructure is one of those levers that Iran has been pulling since the beginning. It's this idea that if they give too much, if they allow the United States too much leash to come at Iran, they will pay in their domestic civilian infrastructure. whether that be economic or not. So there's a price to helping the United States, and these countries are kind of trapped in these agreements that they made with the United States so long ago, because there was this prevailing belief that, the United States could handle it. And maybe under different leadership, they could have. Maybe if the Secretary of Defense wasn't an alcoholic who answers to, I really don't know who he answers to. And so we look at Kuwait, and then you can go down and you see that whole stretch of coastline. But what's interesting is where we actually lost troops. Now, there is that incident in Iraq where a drone, and you can see it in the top left corner, if you kind of zoom out, and then you go over to the left, there's that one casualty up there. So that was a EOD, basically disarming a explosive gone wrong. It was a drone launched by Kataib Hezbollah, which is an Iranian proxy in Iraq, and that drone was downed, but then the soldier disarming the explosive lost his life, and that is a tragedy, of course. But the more significant events, of course, happened in Jordan. This one made mainstream headlines. It's ticking up the casualty count, and it potentially catastrophic. And we have, my latest understanding is it has gone up to 4, and it's just going to be that two split right there on the, that one right there. So you can see what's interesting is if you're looking at this, these are really far away from where this is a little bit of a harder strike mission for Iran. This is a bigger distance, and there's going to be a lot more warning time. There should be, right? Like, this is a target where I would expect the United States to see this coming and intercept this. There's a lot more transit time on this than if they're shooting at Kuwait, right? Kuwait is across the pond. They've got barely any time to respond. But Jordan's a little different. And what this kind of sticks out to me is that when we look at things in terms of, we note what the United States has lost, we know that they've lost radar systems. We know they've lost batteries. When you're thinking about coverage and you're conducting a strike campaign, you are going to be focusing on those bases that are closest and are going to have assets constantly rotating in. You're going to be having sorties coming out of those bases. So you're going to move the resources you do have to cover those positions. It would not be, and this is speculation, I want to be clear that I can only get this from looking at the way things have happened. But this particular attack shouldn't have happened. They should not be blowing up our troops while they're sleeping in trailers, because that's what happened. It was a missile that went into the residential area and just blew up a bunch of people where they're sleeping. Okay. So, it is one of those things where my question then becomes, okay, how did this happen? And with the advanced warning time, if they had had anything there at all, they should have stopped this. This is like I would expect them to have a hard time in Kuwait. I would expect them to have a hard time in the UAE because, again, proximity. Jordan, there's not really a close place. They should have had advanced warning here. This tells us that they're already stretched thin, and they're making judgment calls in terms of, what do we need to cover that's operationally significant right now? They're not running as many sorties out of Jordan.
Was this a Lebanese strike? Was this a strike from Lebanon, the one in Jordan?
No.
This came from Iran.
Yeah.
So it would have had to go over the entirety of Iraq.
Yeah. They should have had.
Which eventually Iraq will start being much more aggressive in their policy towards things flying over their country.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's not, but in addition to that, right? That is super, that's where we have to start asking questions. This shouldn't have happened because we already know, like, it's all about early warning, right? Like, that's the doctrine, is that we see it coming, we intercept it. this is the kind of thing where I'm really getting skeptical of their ability to even just defend troops in the region, like wholesale. Like they should not be blowing up kids while they're asleep, and they are. A 19-year-old girl, woman, 19-year-old woman, service woman, lost her life. She didn't even get to drink legally before she died for these people, in her sleep. In her sleep, they all like. I mean, I can't. This is not. There is a difference between a tactical victory and a strategic victory, right? And maybe Nick, you'll be better at describing this than I am. But there's basically a strategic victory. I'm going to toss it over to you. Maybe you'll put it better than I do.
A tactical victory is like a mission-led victory, is a much smaller scale. A strategic victory is like taking a city that used to be where you would be getting hit hardest from. A tactical victory would be taking out a weapons cache in said city.
Yes, that's perfect. Great examples. That actually works perfectly because there's been lots of tactical victories. Yes, the one thing Trump says that is true is we did pretty much F up their Navy. They don't have corvettes, they don't have frigates. Anything that was a large surface vessel, we did blow up. But those are the easiest things to hit. Lots of tactical victories. But you can store a fast boat in a garage, put it on a trailer, and then go drive it out and put it in the ocean. That is not something you can easily strike. Not only that, but fast boats are cheap. They're cheap. These are the things where that's the whole doctrine, is this. And I think that, hopefully looking at this map and this discussion, what I would like you guys to take away is that, one, we are clearly very stressed. This is not again, like Nick said, they need to stop this. Once they run out of interceptors, it becomes a ground operation. You have to go physically to the launcher and stop them from launching it. You don't get to kind of just be like, yeah, we'll intercept them all. And that's the whole nature of this, is that whoever thought this was going to work, that this was going to be over, they never gamed out 140 plus days of war. That is not something they thought about. So one, I think we need to be paying attention to how, I think, is the rate of successful strikes by Iran increasing? My analysis found that in the days covered in this map, that significant strikes were favoring Iran. Iran was favored in terms of significant strikes on U.S. bases. And that's really where we need to kind of look at, I think I don't want to go too far into the weeds, but those are these key things here. We're running out. We're seeing an uptick in strike volume. And now we have the Houthis close the strait, and suddenly we're again in talks. But I don't think we can do this. This war.
Shane, did I lose you? Or is someone, hold on. Does somebody, oh, Shane's computer restarted. Okay. He'll be right back. It cut him off mid-sentence. Sorry about that, y'all. Let me take over for a minute while hopefully y'all can hear me. Sorry, I paused there for a moment. I'll pick up where Shane was in some of this too, and I'll get his thoughts when he comes back in. Is if you look at what's going on now in this region, you also have to remember that.
Daddy, can you try connecting it to
Erwin, bro, you gotta wait, dude. I'm in something. I can't help. Is when we look at this war theater, we also have to remember what it is doing back here at home now that we're seeing out of Iran where they're making threats towards, say, hotels or whatever they're saying that they're going to attack, is the increase now in what's going to happen on surveillance tech. It's going to, what we're doing by destabilizing this region and then encouraging Iran to threaten reciprocal attacks somehow on our homeland or even on businesses that are American, is that it's going to uptick the push for internal surveillance tech to defend the homeland.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your thoughts there, Shane? Well, now that you're back.
Yeah. Sorry about that. My computer just decided to.
No, it happens, dude.
I think that you're right. I think that a lot of this war serves a lot of purposes, increasing in surveillance tech, justification for investment in the military, which clearly for them is a means to, again, siphon money out of the government and into their pockets. Additionally, you have this incentive of if they can get a ability to declare war, there are certain things they can do to manipulate elections. So there's a lot of motivation for them to have a war. And whether that be like through all of the things you just shared or the things in addition to that, I think that this is very much so one of those situations where there's a ton of different motivations, and people in power look at Putin will accept just about any cost at the expense of their population to maintain power. So they don't care how many people get blown up because this war is a means to an end, and that end is staying in power. So I think in that sense, we need to kind of really clarify what are the motivations here, aside from the fact that I think Israel is a big part of this, and they are losing influence in the United States. That is absolutely happening. And if they're going to pull levers, now's the time because that influence is waning. It certainly will wane more once the midterms go through. So I think that's part of it. And that's one of those discussions. It is really, there's a lot of reasons for this war. None of them benefit the American people. And all of them benefit individual actors, and it is interesting to see kind of Ukraine and its involvement. And I do wonder if there is some correlation between Israel and having so many of those Ukrainian oligarchs go to Israel and that kind of weird relationship that has always existed there. Because again, Israel is not doing the best in general. So I would expect them to start kind of doing things like trying to pull Ukraine in to potentially assist them, which is absolutely a detriment to Ukraine. Ukraine should not be trying to fight multiple wars. I see the angle of trying to create this axis of evil with Russia and Iran. I do see it, but I think they need to be focused. Personally, I think Zelensky should be focused on his people in Ukraine and not be, antagonizing Iran, because Iran could just be like, okay, cool, we're going to send, 50 missiles to Putin, and those missiles are going to then rain down on Ukraine. It doesn't necessarily have to be a kinetic response. It can be any of these other things, more drones. They're still making lots of drones. So I see it, but it's not smart, in my opinion. I'm one person, but there's some numbers too that I think we can talk about as well, and some more specifics on more recent things that have come out. But if you did think this map was cool and helpful, I did do an update last Monday, and you can go and scan that QR code. The link to the map is here. You can go in and click through and investigate and look at all these things. as well, and get a better idea, kind of process some of the things we talked about today, and use this to kind of help figure out what's going on there. But Nick, we do have that report. There's a couple things that stood out to me, but I am curious kind of like what popped out to you. What are those things that you're like looking and being like, oh, that's worth kind of digging into a little bit?
I think one of the things that I want you to dig into more, and that we should dig into more, is the cost of the war,
Yeah.
and these efforts, and how much more is going to be needed to
Yeah.
fund these efforts, because that directly impacts everybody on a day-to-day level. It's making energy prices more efficient,
Yep.
more excessive. It is making food prices more excessive. It is making the cost of everything go up, and we should know what we're paying for. So I know you've done some reporting on the war figures jumping to 37.5 billion, while the Pentagon is continuing to seek 67 to 80 billion more in funding. Do you want to go into that a little bit and talk about some of the funding that they're requesting? Because that's really what's important to look at, is what are they asking for,
Right.
to know where our money is going. But also, we're going to look back and see see in other areas too. We'll start making sure we ask the questions specifically of where did our money go in the end, not just where it was asked for, but where did it go, and who didn't receive the funding that they were supposed to, such as like food and rations and stuff like that. Like, we're going to make sure that that is visible and transparent to y'all. But let's talk about funding and where the Pentagon wants to spend 67 to 80 billion more of our dollars.
Yeah, it's so interesting, right? Because when you do look at these kind of numbers, right, Pete coming out in saying, the cumulative war cost figure, 37.5 billion, he's asking for 67 to 80 billion more. The figure for kind of being at 29 to 30 billion dollars. So that kind of just tells you they spent 7.5 billion dollars in 11 days. So you can go ahead and kind of extrapolate that, and then also consider that the rate of this is a very much lower intensity version. Many of you who read me know that I employ something called the belligerent source rule, which means basically if you are a combatant, if you are involved, you are not trustworthy, because you have an incentive to inflate whatever your success may be. And this is very, very true regarding both Iran and the United States. But honestly, CENTCOM has more to lie about than Iran. So it is very much one of those things where you need to kind of dig into the numbers. And a really important part of this is what that $37.5 billion actually is. What is he saying that is? Is that he's saying cumulative cost? What does that actually mean? That means payroll, operations, and maintenance. That does not cost. That has no including of lost airframes, lost radars, base damage, any kind of medical treatment for the wounded, anything like that, whether that is resupply at sea, or like maintenance is in there. But again, all these numbers are definitely low because we know we've lost billions of dollars in aircraft. We know that we've absorbed billions, at least several billion in base damage. The expenses of emergency, like medevacing all of these people, getting them the care they need, if they are even getting the care they need. This is the military cost. And again, we just don't even know. We have no idea what they've really spent. Even munitions, I think that's low for munitions, because this is payroll, operation, and maintenance. That doesn't necessarily say that those are munitions costs. That could be any number of things. What do they want to use this 67 to 80 billion for? Supplemental funding. What the hell is supplemental funding? What does that even mean? Number one. Two, what can you do with that money? You can order things. So imagine the best equivalent I can give for this is, imagine you're at war and you're running out of missiles and you're getting blown up. And then you're like, oh shit, I need $80 billion. Let me order them on Amazon. It'll take 2 years to get here. That's not going to help us. In fact, again, I go over this over and over again. The markets are broken. The idea of saying on paper, hey, Raytheon, I need interceptors, and Raytheon saying, yeah, I have the things to make those interceptors, are two entirely different things. And due to the actions of this regime, their stupid policy, they have, and the idiocy of our system and just military in terms of logistics and sourcing everything from China, we are in this situation where we might as well piss that money. We might as well just throw that money in the ocean. It do as much for us now by chucking it in the ocean as it would giving it to their friends in these basic. It's all a Ponzi scheme. It doesn't do anything for us. It does nothing for us. It doesn't change the trajectory of the war. It doesn't change the outcome. It doesn't bring those dead kids back. It does none of those things. It just is money we're handing to them.
Yeah. Yes. It's a blank check. It always has been. It's why the Pentagon never passes an audit. And at this point, it's time that we force the Pentagon to do that. Because if we want to end corruption and cronyism and stop having fascism as our main export to the rest of the world, we need to have the Pentagon audited. We need to have other agencies auditable and pass their audits. And that's where regulation and enforcement practices actually work if we use them. But we don't have a functioning system in place to do that. So we will get there, but it takes some creativity. Shane and I have talked about that. We've talked about that path forward quite a few times. But the thing with the monetary stuff is it is all nepotistic. It is all a system. It is a closed system that you have talked about in detail before too, Shane, is the closed system of the capture cycle. And the fact that Peter Thiel has created a network of his lackeys, to include the Trump children and JD Vance, to buy up what he wants and funnel money to where he wants it, so that they can create a surveillance and drone network system.
Yeah. And again, it's ironic because the same applies to their drone surveillance system as our missiles. They need the same thing. People forget that you can't have it all at once, right? If you want to build a Lego, but you only have one bin of bricks, you can't build everything you want at once. It's not possible. You could want to build a ship and a house, but you need the bricks for the ship that you need for the house. You can't build mass surveillance and missiles at the same time. At this point, my take on this, which makes it so painful, is they are just extracting every dollar from a situation they know doesn't work out for them. This pause, unpause, pause, unpause. We know what this did to the markets. We know they're making hundreds of millions of dollars. We know all of these things. Every time, it's not Americans who are in the markets. The markets are not Americans. The markets are not people. They are the same institutions that are influencing the government. They are all one thing. They are not separate. And this is one of those things where a war benefits them politically, financially, and it's like they have no value. Nothing has value to them. So they'll use up the military until it's gone, and then I don't know what, but they're not good at thinking ahead either. They're very much like, what can I take that's in front of me? And this opportunity gives them an opportunity to take a lot of money. But there's a number here too that is really important, and it kind of puts into perspective the cost on the people. And that's that U.S. people in the United States are spending a additional had the number here. Wasn't it 72? 72 billion. They spent $72 billion more dollars on gas since the war started. It's one of those things where this is not it's not a small number. I mean, this is a tremendous burden on people. $72 billion. And that goes to the oil and gas companies. Those are profits, folks. They are profits. They are not a detractor. This is it is profitable to them. War has always been profitable. And with the Houthis closing Bab el-Mandeb, we just lost another significant percentage of global energy. And not only that, but we have to consider that the Houthis getting involved, this is basically an entire untapped, the equivalent of what would be several divisions of fresh troops that have now been added to the tactical picture. And the Houthis are very, very much in a position to basically hit them from behind, especially concerning for Israel, because they're much closer to Israel. They can do a lot more to Israel. And in that sense, too, I think there is a lot of concern there, not only for global energy, but this kind of changes the dynamic of the idea that they've been able to kind of normalize and keep the price of energy down. Is actually very interesting that the reason that this has been so low goes back to China. China cut its use of crude oil and liquid natural gas by almost 50%. They activated a ton of coal factories and alternatives, and they've been actually mitigating the price of energy by cutting essentially all of these imports, massive imports, which then goes ahead and allows the supply. So that original deficit of 20% that came out of Bab el-Mandeb, the Strait of Hormuz, China actually got it down to about 5%, which is manageable. The markets can manage that. But again, that's like at the cost of that's just China doing that. And that's not even a long-term solution. And there is a point where they've pulled most of the levers that allow them to mitigate this crisis. You talk to anybody, it is the biggest energy crisis the world has ever faced. It's just crazy. It just gets more and more, ridiculous. I don't know, Nick, your thoughts?
No, it is. And that's the point, isn't it? It's to drive up costs, to make options unavailable for people so that the only really viable work paths in some areas are join the military or join a government agency like ICE. And that's intentional. They're doing this on purpose. It's part of the overall themology of the eugenics regime, is they're going to force you into situations that'll either kill you through work or kill you by itself, because you're not in the in-group. And we just have to accept that part of it and get over infighting on our own side so we can focus on ourselves, because right now we're at a crisis and inflection point. We have to stay together, or we have to rebuild at a really rough point. Like, rebuilding after the fact is much harder than rebuilding before the most disastrous parts happen. And so again, this comes back to, we need to ensure that we get people elected into Congress. We also need to make sure that we are prepared for the onslaught of fake voting and suppression on the American side, because as we get closer to election days and past the primaries and into actual elections, the scare tactics for this regime will increase. Because when they see that they're about to lose power, just like a cornered wolf at the very end, a dying cornered wolf will lash out in its last breaths, because it knows one thing, and it's attack. And that's what it's going to do. And they're going to do that. And we have to be prepared for those moments and continue to step through them in the fashions that we have, but very forcefully, because we have to come together and all say no and demonstrate our resolve on it.
Yeah. We still have a general strike. It has yet to happen. It has yet to happen. Like, there's still things to do. I mean, and there are things too that like can do. I say this, like, the system is based on us spending money. Don't spend money on things don't buy new things. There's so many things. There's all kinds of, even I hate Facebook. So I like to use OfferUp or Let Go. But if you need something, go find it from somebody else. Like, don't invest in this system that funds all of these things. Like, you could buy it on Amazon, or you could see if, you could borrow it from your neighbor, right? There is alternatives to that. But, there's, a lot of this too, just a couple, examples of what we're looking at here in terms of, and there'll be a report coming out today or tomorrow that goes in depth on all of the things we discussed today. But I do want to point out a couple things, like the big kind of tells, right? One of these big tells for me is our MQ-9 Reaper fleet, where the most reliable estimates are between 29 and 31 lost. That is significant. That's like 17% of our total capacity total. These are not losses. And the reason, we also have to think about, why are we losing so many? Because they're not comfortable sending manned aircraft into these areas. They are not comfortable sending people on these kind of missions. And that tells us that they're draining resources to basically keep personnel out of the area, which means their air defenses are clearly more capable than we think, because they're shooting these things down. They're shooting them down, and they're good at it. This is not like they've gotten good at it. You don't shoot down 30, 31, even if it's 29. I do think it's 31, because there are a couple reports that came out in the last week or so of them getting shot down. But it's just one of those things where these are not the actions of a country that is confident or that is winning, or these are not the numbers that you would expect. If you slapped Russia on instead of the United States on this war and put it in Putin, you flipped it and said, this is Russia, this is Ukraine versus Russia, we would be cheering for Ukraine, because that's huge. That's a huge win. Taking these down would be huge. The world would be saying something entirely different if it was Ukraine shooting down 17% of Russia's, surveillance and, autonomous drone strike capacity. That is like, and again, all of this is very buried. Like, you have to look at the individual reports, put together the numbers, and then say, holy crap, that's a lot. None of this is visible. And the only thing you really get covered is, we're making a deal. They need to make a deal. We're going to give them $300 billion and they're going to open Hormuz. The craziest part is that during the memorandum of understanding, leading up to the war, Iran was at the point where it was storing its excess crude oil in tankers because it had run out of storage, which would have meant they would have had to turn off or close some wells, which would have been economically devastating for them. But instead, the MOU comes about. They drop the sanctions on Iranian oil. They sell something like $700 million worth of oil, empty all of their storage, and now they're good for another couple months. So even things like that, like, you can't make this shit up. This is dumb. Like, and it goes to show that there is a lack of leverage on the part of the United States. And this forever war you're kind of talking about, to me, is, do they just save face by like bombing them for a week, getting blown up, and then taking another break and that kind of seems like what they're doing is that like they can't win definitively. They're not confident or comfortable putting troops on the ground. And even if they did, Iran's capable of like getting a million assorted troops between Artesh and IRGC. Like they can get up to 1 million people. And the second you put boots on the ground, the dynamic changes. You have this nationalist surge. They're being invaded. Those people who might not have been activated are going to be activated. It's just like we might be able to get maybe, right? I could see a situation where they seize Bandar Abbas, set up a cordon, and, try and keep them open the strait that way, right? Like I could see that maybe being plausible with, I think, 3 MEUs in the region right now. I could see that being plausible, but not even for an extended duration of time. I mean, if you put together 20,000,
but that would actually require an act of Congress, and they wouldn't get.
I agree.
I'm not confident enough to say that they wouldn't get the authorization.
Unfortunately,
but I think it would be a really hard sell.
Yeah.
Even to this Republican Congress, like because they know the second we put boots on the ground, we're there for years, and people aren't ready and don't want that. The MAGA base doesn't want that. The non-MAGA base, for the most part, doesn't want that. There's only a select few people that really want boots on the ground. And at some point, that becomes an unwinnable sell, even for Congress.
Totally. Yeah. It's interesting. There is a very, very much a clock on all this. And that's kind of what makes this the most interesting, is that it's the domestic pressure, I think, that is going to be extremely influential here as well. And what levers are being pulled most dramatically. And so I think if there's one, I'd say if there's the takeaways for me with the most recent update is kind of like, it really does seem like the only option for them, if they want to keep the war going long enough to get the benefits that they're seeking, is this kind of on again, off again pause that Iran is more than happy to indulge because they have already established overland supply lines. They will reconstitute in this window. They will build more missiles. They will build more drones, and they will do so faster and more efficiently than the United States can do anything. They will make, 7,000 more drones, and the United States will spend billions of dollars flying out not enough rations to just supply the people or build these bases or these bunkers. And you can't reconstitute a radar. Like that doesn't happen. That takes years. But for them, it's just another missile. They don't need to be pretty. They need to have a solid, fuel booster. They need to fit on a truck. And even Iran has started to unveil dual launchers, 2. So now they can do 2 in some cases, which again changes the dynamic. That shoot and scoot. You can go out, you can launch 2 cruise missiles for the price of 1. That means you only need to expose 1 launcher to get twice the impact, right? Solid fuel booster rockets. They have a shorter takeoff time, right? So they take off quicker, which makes that shoot and scoot that much faster, that much more efficient. So we are just kind of looking at this situation where no matter what they do, it's digging the hole deeper. That's what it is.
Yes. At this point, everything is a deeper hole being dug because we didn't do it right the first time. This is what happens when you start conflicts and wars without a plan. You have to have the exit strategy and the actual mission strategy in place. And if your only strategy is chaos, then sure, you're getting what you want. And at some point, the people revolt against that. The American people are much less subdued than the Russian populace. So it's much harder to get away with shit in America like this. That said, the American people need to do the practical work of actually making it known that they are unhappy with this. Because if you don't, then they're not going to act. They're not going to change what's going on because they're making money and they're not hearing people say, no, we don't like this.
Yeah.
And so they need that. Like this is again a structural move to force people into situations where they have to sign up to serve, where if they otherwise wouldn't, because there are no other economic opportunities. And then they have a fighting force for them. And they can claim their volunteer fighting force has recruitment numbers are through the roof right now, without saying the other half of the statement of because the economy is destroyed, because we destroyed the economy, so recruitment numbers are through the roof now. That's what it will be. And that's the type of bullshit we have to get used to while we're doing this and working through it also. But the whole point of all of this is they're bringing about a economic change because they can control the markets, they can control oil flow, they can control fertilizer flow, even without having to control it. When you do controlled strikes against different ships in the strait to create economic situations that are hard on certain shipping companies over others, then you are controlling the markets and manipulating them that way. And then when you strategically pause your strikes and say that we're going to do this because the weekend is over and the markets are about to reopen, and if the strait is open on a Monday morning, the markets might be up. Can't affect the markets in the weekend. I mean, you can, but they can try and reduce that by doing strategic targeting like they are for weekend strikes. And then it's going to increase into weekday strikes and then eventually into boots on the ground. Like that is the sequence. Or we leave the region. Again, that's the only other real good option is we leave the region.
The region, not like this, but like the region. Like that's.
And if we do that, at the same time, we are ceding control of the Strait of Hormuz to Iran.
Yeah.
And they win. Like we've put ourselves into a lose-lose situation.
Yeah.
Because
China
we
won,
entered a
Iran
lose-lose scenario. Like there's no good exit strategy when the entrance strategy is chaos.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's really what it is. Like we are fighting coordinated chaos.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the unfortunate thing is, you can look at this.
It also, cutting you off real quick. It also, what this also does is it masks the importance of other operations and other strategic targeting that we would do as a nation. So it masks the more that we are focused on Iran, the less we are focused on hemispherication of the Americas and dominion over various regions in the Americas by U.S. assets, because we're so focused on what are we doing in Iran and around the Strait of Hormuz or around Israel and the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. Like the more we're focused there, the less we're focused as a nation on our manipulations in our own backyard and our own nation. And that's what they want to, is like the confusion here too. Part of it is it distracts from talking about other important things.
Totally. Yeah. It is really important that all of these things are held in balance. It's hard. It's hard to hold, 20 different overlapping things in your head at once. It's really difficult. It's not an easy thing. And, some days I'm doing analysis and I've got, 30 different, threads of thought going through my head. And I'm like, I'm exhausted because it's hard to really cross all of these things together and find out where the true nature of the problem is. And to kind of build on some of these kind of the economic thing, I want to talk a little bit too about how even if Hormuz is per se opened, right? And so for the United States to, some analysts out there, I was watching a video by, it's a pretty reliable, their sources are pretty good. It's called War Fronts, but they were talking about if the United States wanted to successfully have guard 10 vessels through Hormuz, they would need 12 surface vessels, 12 warships to get it 10 through, right? That's entirely unsustainable. They already tried it once. It went really well for them, called Project Freedom, lasted about 3 days. So with that in mind too, we need to look at kind of the other element here that works really in Iran's favor, which is that these insurance companies will not insure these ships. So even if they wanted to go through, even if they were like, fuck it, we're going to risk it, the insurance companies aren't going to do it. The companies are not going to lose money on these ships getting blown up. So a really good way to look at this is the Houthis closed Bab el-Mandeb on July 20th. But the bigger thing is Saudi Arabia kind of tried to push it, and they hit 2 tankers with cruise missiles. And now the insurance companies are going to say, absolutely not. We're not going to insure it. You can't go through Bab. It's just not going to work. And they don't need to shoot missiles to do that. They don't need to expend munitions. They spend, $50,000 on munitions, $150,000 missile, shoot 2 of those for 100,000, and they stop, $8 billion in shipping. That's a really good exchange. And it is just risk. The market is so risk averse that they don't need, there's so many ways they can stop the trade. And it just goes to show that these countries, particularly, you're starting to see the US kind of, you can tell that they're in a little bit of hot water with these places, because Saudi Arabia suddenly got permission to develop US enriched nuclear materials in the middle of all this, which to me says, we're getting our shit rocked. You're not winning. Give me a reason to let you keep using my country. And then you see they get to enrich nuclear fuel. Interesting, right? Like, these are little things like, oh, they're having to give them little bits of candy to keep them around. And those are the little things where you're like, there's only so much leverage. There really is. Like, it's not bottomless. It's not like our superpower, our hegemony has been eroding since he took office. And there's not very much left. You cannot expect Europe to come to your aid when you were threatening to annex Greenland. And so much for that. Good luck annexing Greenland after you spent all your fucking missiles in Iran. Good luck protecting Taiwan, because all of your missiles, you shot them in Iran. Good luck honoring any of your defense agreements, because we can't defend ourselves. We have no leverage. The U.S. defense agreement leverage lever has been effectively removed from our list of things, which the ramifications of that post-war are going to be dramatic. We're going to have to close bases. We're going to have to close a lot of bases. We're going to have to pick theaters. We are going to have to spend money on munitions. Well, we've got, I think, 4 carriers in dry dock right now. Okay, so what does that mean? That means we're not going to be spending that money on maintaining vessels. That the parts and components for those missiles are going to be prioritized over the parts and components to maintain old airframes. We still use the B-52. It's 70 years old. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I mean, dude, that's fucking 3 of me. I'm like, I can't even fathom these are the same planes that were dropping bombs in World War II. And they are now,
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I guess, dude, except they're falling out of the sky. like six airmen died in California because of
No, I
B-52.
know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's how I honestly I haven't paid attention, but I feel like there's been more aircraft, Air Force accidents resulting in the death of airmen under this administration than anything I can recall in my life. I mean, it's like it seems like every other week a fighter jet is like crashing in the forest in Oregon or falling out, crashing and everywhere you look. We've lost 3 F-15s to friendly fire in the first week. And those don't count, by the way, as combat
No,
losses. That's not a
they
combat
don't.
loss. Nope, they're not counting that in any figure. The planes that were falling off of the back of aircraft carriers when we fought the Houthis the first time and we lost. No one's talking about that, but we did. We fought the Houthis and lost, and now they're back, and they're like, open it, bro. Let's see you open it. I'd love to see you open it. You can't even handle big bro. You think you can come and handle big bro and me at the same time? No. And the crazy part is Iran can just say, hey, we can tell the Houthis to stand down, give you back, a little bit of grace if you want, like these negotiations are like, I would love to be a fly on that wall. I would love to be a fly on that wall and hear what those discussions are, because I just can't imagine they are any kind of diplomacy. It's just crazy to me.
Honestly, the only thing I could think of that would be a win, which isn't even a win. It's really go back to net neutral, is if they could figure out how to get back to what we were before they bombed, we would be in a better place than we are now, where it would be in a worse place than we were in February when it started, but we would at least be back to net neutral. Like that's really the only way we salvage any of this is if we get to net neutral. But we can't take back the lives that were lost. Like there is no returning to true net neutral. And so it's basically done. Like
it's all downhill from here.
Yeah. And the uphill push is a lot harder to get. Like pushing a rock back up a hill, even with some momentum, is hard to do. And so we're going to be pushing this boulder for a while. Like the damage that has been done is generational.
Yeah. Maybe it'll be.
We have to work with that.
Yeah. Maybe it'll be a good thing. Maybe if we take back our Congress and say, we would like to not spend all of our money on weapons. We would like to not do this. You've gone and shown us just how well you use our defense. So how about we shrink our military? We could sell those carriers. We could sell a couple to Europe. We don't need them. They'll restore them. They get a carrier. We don't have to deal with it. We shrink our fleet. We worry about defending America because guess what? All the things they're pulling for Iran are supposed to protect us. They're stripping everything. You better believe that if it's not tied down and has to be somewhere else, they're busing it to the Middle East, which they're just sending more stuff to get blown up because we've talked about all of these things. So, maybe it's better if we just stop being a warmongering, hawkish, we suck right now. And maybe if we spend less money on weapons to kill people and spend more money on social programs, education, figuring out how to help this entire generation of basically Gen Alpha that has been brain rotted by allowing tech companies to run a experiment on our youth, which has had awful results. Literacy rates are like through the floor. Kids can't solve problems. They can't, it's really quite shocking. These are urgent things that need to be addressed. And building $80 billion, that would actually solve the housing crisis. $8 billion, I think, would solve the housing crisis. So we could take 10% of what they're asking and no more homeless. If there's less homeless
You're
people,
asking too much, Shane. America's not about nice things for its people. It's about blowing up nice things for other people.
It's all downhill from here. For now.
Again, it can be uphill from here. It doesn't
Yes.
have to be a downhill. Like,
For a while. For a while, it's going to be downhill. But like that's the whole thing I guess I was trying to get at is like we can take this opportunity, which is going to necessitate that we shrink. We're going to have to shrink. Like that's bottom line. We're going to have to shrink our military footprint around the world because we have no choice. So maybe we can do the right thing and not rebuild all of it and to try and get back to a different era. We don't want to be Cold War America anymore. I don't want to be Cold War America. I have no interest in being a military superpower. I would like to have a house, a little bit of land, and be able to mind my own business and take care of myself and live a happy life with my dogs and my partner. And I could really care less about bombing people or making sure that Israel can defend itself. Israel can defend itself by itself. How about that? You know, like are we running into Sudan to protect them? Are we going into Ukraine to protect them? No, we're not bending over backwards for everyone else. Like if that's the case, let's just mind our own business. I mean, like that is maybe the takeaway here is like, let's just mind our own business. Yeah, you know what? We don't get to fix oil prices for the entire world anymore because that's messed up and empowered our oligarchy and helped with the downfall of American democracy by consolidating wealth within the 0.0000001%. You know, this is a crazy number, entirely unrelated. I guess Jake Paul in his fight with who was it? I forget his name. He's a big deal. He was oh my God, someone in the chat will know. But basically, Jake Paul had this fixed fight with like a very famous fighter, and he made $100 million in one night. He got his jaw broken, sure. Looked like a loser, sure. But all of his insider betting and his Kalshi bets and his ad revenue, $100 million in one night. I told my partner, I'm like, this is busted. There's nothing. Mike Tyson. He fought Mike Tyson. There's nothing one person can do that will earn them $100 million in one night. There is not a single task that it is worth $100 million. How you become a centi millionaire in like centimillionaire in a day. I mean, like, dude, I can't even. There is some. We just need to come back to reality. Like that's kind of where we need to be. Is find where reality is and put our feet there. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a good point for us to close out for today. We've been for an hour and a half. We're right at the top of that point for ourselves, and so let's do what we need to and promote our work.
For sure.
And
Banner
where people can find us. Come support Banner and Backbone. That's the network here where we're doing this.
Make Palantalk possible.
Made Palantalk possible. Well, we made Palantalk possible.
Yes.
Banner and Backbone help make it visible.
Yes.
And I'm glad we did it. And so come support Banner and Backbone. Can be a paid or free subscriber here. Help us continue to grow the space and the publication. And then Shane, how about you, my brother? Promote yourself today.
Yeah. I've been putting out really well-sourced, thorough work. You guys, if you go and read my briefs, I've been trying to put out about one a week. Need to make sure that it is sustainable. Things are pretty tough. So I learned my lesson in being a little bit too deep into too many tragedies. It's hard on oneself. So I've been really focused on giving you guys something really solid and dependable weekly. So my latest articles, you can go and read those. I encourage you to interact fully with those, but also I brought in this feature where you can vote on what you want to see covered next. So you guys voted on my last article. You want more Iran coverage. So that's what you're going to get this week. So it helps me also kind of point the spotlight and give you guys what you think is important. So please support my work. And I will continue to bring you guys analysis on what you guys want to see, and to help kind of cover these different things around the world in a way that is manageable, sustainable, and healthy for myself. So I really do appreciate everyone's support in regards to that. And if you are able to come and support me, free, paid, or make donations, all of that you can find at that QR code on the screen. And I hope to see you with a like or a comment on the next post, because it is readers like you guys who are interested in the analysis and getting to know the wider world that makes my job possible. So thank you.
Thanks, brother.
Absolutely. Guys,
And
Nick, go support Nick. Nick deserves it. He works really hard and he deserves your money. He's building all kinds of cool things, and he stands up for people with disabilities. There's your musical.
I love it. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
That's it. That's it. Just
Hey!
come support Nick. Come
Go
support Nick.
support Nick.
That's the
Free
new
or
jingle.
paid. Do it today.
I like it. Shane's
There you
just
go.
going to be my new jingle person. So come support Sick of This Shit publications with a paid or free subscription. We're running Disability Pride Month subscription sale right now, 20% off forever for
Fantastic.
monthly or annual subscribers. We also have our founding subscription for 100 or more a year. Please do take advantage if you can or want to and are able to become a paid subscriber. If not, be a free subscriber. Like Shane said, working on some really incredible tools that are just about ready for active user onboarding outside of some test users and some beta testers for us. Shane is going to start getting
You'll be able to see
some pokes here soon from me on, hey,
Yes.
you need to sign up for this so that I can run you through the test process, and then you can spread the word on to everybody.
I think it'll work well with my system. I'll bring you. We'll figure it out. But I'll bring you in on a call, and I'll show you how everything is set up, and then
Sweet.
I think it'll work. I think it'll work well. And once he gets that tool done, you'll probably be able to see a lot more stuff from me, because it's going to be very helpful. So that will be good as well. So yes, guys, supporting Nick is not just like, it's about giving him time and space to work on things that are going to make a larger impact, particularly as you know, we are kind of in this weird space with technology, the algorithm, AI coming out, and visibility, the cracking of down on our media and our free speech. It's an important moment, and you know, Nick giving him that support to give him the space to work on those things is important. So I do encourage you again to support Nick, as well as Banner and Backbone.
I'll put Banner and Backbone back up again. Thanks, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go have a great week, because this is Palantalk, where we like to talk tech.
No fascism.
Thanks, y'all. We'll see you again next week.
We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.